What should Grandma get me to eat?
Thank you, Grandma.
I can't lie, I'm excited to be back because I was having a good time last time we were playing.
Yeah, this game in particular is pretty damn good. I am not gonna lie.
You know what? Let me get that caramel frappe, dude.
Now we'll talk to Dennis.
Dennis, do you know the way?
to accept you into it. Welcome back to Far Cry, everyone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hello, brother.
My friends are in trouble too.
What did the message say?
They've been taken to somewhere called PC.
Yeah, can I get the curry-go rice and peas?
And then sell them anyway.
It's interesting to see, like, you can hear in his voice too. He's so much different early game than he is in late game. Jason, the main character, his attitude.
Oh, he's just like so much more like hardened or whatever.
That's the thing. Like the thing about this game
I'll do it.
is that I've really grown to like appreciate about it narratively. Is that I don't think the voice actor for Jason is the greatest for where they take his character, but I think the writing for his character is really solid, actually. I think it's a really interesting idea.
But it's like, it's such a fine line because you want your actor to be able to perform, but it's also like kind of interesting too because like your actor's in the first person, right? Like oftentimes in games you'll get moments where, especially like a scene like that, it'll cut out, it'll show your character in the third person, and then it'll have that talking scene, but it keeps you in the first person interacting the whole time. So having a voice alongside it is almost like a little bit weird, no?
Yeah, and the thing one of the things I've really started drawing parallels to is that this game, as you load into certain missions, it'll quote Alice in Wonderland. And I never understood why playing it until this time around. It's really starting to make sense to me that like it says like even when you start the game it says that Alice fell deep into the rabbit hole or something like that, and then I was like I'm like, why does it keep calling back to Alice in Wonderland? And the reason I think that is because Wonderland represents the jungle, the island that you're on, and everyone here is insane in one way or another with power and where that power leads them, right? Voss being your main villain up to this point, you realize like, oh, he's a psychopath. You know, your intentions are good at the start of this game as of like why you need to take him out and what you're trying to do. But as you progress through this game, there's this level of digression with your character, because then your character starts to be more consumed with this power and starts to give him more like excuses of why he needs to go out and kill people instead of, you know, doing what his main objective was from the get-go, which is just getting his friends and getting the fuck out of here. It's like the island itself has consumed the character, and I really like the idea of that. And I actually think there's a lot that you can kind of like pick apart with that idea, and it's really made me appreciate the narrative of this, and it makes me wonder where the fuck any of that narrative is in any other Ubisoft game. Or like any sort of like actual like time put into the narrative. Does that make sense? Like,
God fucking damn it.
What?
I have hiccups.
Oh.
You know, the big thing related to that is like ludonarrative dissonance, where it's like in most games, like i.e. something like an Uncharted or The Last of Us, where you go about killing so many people and like things where it's like you become like emotionally unattached from the idea of like killing is bad, because you just simply do it so much. And games like that do a point to not draw attention to that idea, where it's like but this is almost doing the reverse, if you know, me finding out what you're saying is true, where it's like you become addicted to killing, like anything to fuel going out and like, oh no, we need to take care of these ideas because it's like for the betterment of this island and our group and like escaping and everything like that.
What it reminds me of is Breaking Bad in a lot of ways. Because
I can see that.
Breaking Bad, Walt's character starts out the same way. He's got a good justified reason of why he's doing what he's doing to try to help his family.
Sure.
But as you go throughout the story, he does more and more heinous shit to where he becomes the people that he swears he's not going to be, right? This drug lord, right? Jason's in a similar situation. And I love stories like that because you can see why their thought process continues down that rabbit hole, so to speak. And you can relate that kind of thought process or take a lesson from that in your life too. Any situation you get where you're given any sort of power, any sort of control, I feel like people end up getting lost in the idea of like why they hated people in power to begin with, because they justify it in their brain of like, I'm not going to be that, and this is why. But then before you know it, you become them, and then you start to justify your actions. And you see the main character do that in this game, where it's like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's like, at first you're like, why are you not doing this thing anymore? Now you're just consumed by your power. But then something pops up to where it suddenly justifies your actions again, but for all the wrong reasons, you know? And then suddenly the character rewires it in his brain where it's like, I have to do it now because this thing just became like priority. But it's like, but that wasn't priority when you first decided to go. I'm trying to really step around like the story here.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that narratively, and I'll really dive deep into that. And I love that because there's lessons to be picked apart in that. It's like, don't get so consumed in the idea of what you're doing that you start finding justifications for your actions, saying, oh, I'm better than that person because my actions are more justified than theirs, yet you're doing the same thing as this evil villain.
Well, you
get what I mean?
In a way, isn't like...
And I think that's so fascinating. I think that's really fascinating. Because it's to the point where it's like you understand him as a protagonist and you understand his justifications, but if you really think about the actions the character's doing, you are just like the person that you're going after. You are no different. And I think that's the thing that's really brilliant about a game like this with a story like that, and why it harkens back to a Breaking Bad to me, is because it's so easy to get so consumed in what you do that you start to justify what you're doing is right. But if you look at it from the outside looking in, you're just as cynical and evil as the people you swear you would never be like, you know?
I think this game would really benefit from like a choice-based system of like choosing the high or low road where like, you know, you can stoop to the levels of the evil that you've been fighting the whole time, or like, you know, try to overcome that. Because with a game shaped in this way and with what you're telling me, the only way to avoid succumbing to that is to not interact with that, which means not playing the game.
Right.
So I feel like a game like this would be greatly benefited from a choice-based system, but that might be far outside of the scope of like, with the game being the way it is, like what the PS3 might have... no, I feel like you should be able to be given choices because like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be so cool that where it's like, oh, we found this group of men. It's like, oh, well, what do we do with them? It's like, oh, well, you can either justify killing them because that means they can report back to like their group of where we are and whatnot. Right. And then you yourself are actually making these justifications
the alarm.
versus just the character.
Right.
Is that something that happens in later Far Cry's? Is that...
See, I need to... that's why I'm going to play through a lot of them. I'm going to play through 2, 3, 4, and 5. I might get to 6. But because I'm liking this game so much, I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's one of those things where I'm like, because I never played Far Cry 6.
Sure.
I literally was just at that point, I was so checked out with Ubisoft, I was like, fuck that. But this game is actually so good that it's making me reconsider.
Giving you a window.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll give them a fair chance. Maybe Far Cry is an exception in their catalog of games.
Okay.
I could be wrong in that, though. This could be easily the best one, and this was just a flash in the pan kind of game. But I mean, yeah, I stand by it. I think Far Cry 3 is a great game. And it kind of like highlights something that I think this is why this game's in my top 10 personal favorite. I was saying that to you earlier. It's number 10 in my top 10. And I think the reason why I think that is because the idea of this game is so out there and so outlandish that I don't feel like you'll ever get a game with a premise like this again.
In the later installations, out of what you recall, is there choices in what to do?
I can't, it's been so long since I played him, I can't remember. Okay. I know there's a choice at the end of this game, but this game doesn't really give you choices. Okay. There's like a choice at the end of the game that you can make. But a few things I want to know is that one of the things I really like about this game in particular is the premise is super unique.
Sure.
The plot of this game of you being on your friends in this third world country on vacation, and you get kidnapped by these pirates and you have to save them, and then your character slowly devolves trying to do that, right?
And it's simple enough to like immediately get behind.
But it's so out there that you would think it shouldn't work, you know? Like, it's
Sure.
just such an outlandish concept, you know? That it really shocks me that a AAA studio had the balls to like take a risk on a plot like that, you know?
And it gets you thinking too. It's like, what if you found yourself in this situation?
Could you honestly say you wouldn't succumb to your own power and like be like stripped away of what made you by the time you rescued your friends, you know? And I really love that idea. I love that idea of that like power corrupts all kind of thing, even if you think it doesn't.
With like coming from what starts out as like the best of intentions, which, you know, to get on my nerd shit a little bit, always brings me back to like specifically like the DC universe of like any iteration of Batman where he gains any substantial power becomes a villain. You know, he gets a Speed Force, immediate villain. He gets a Green Lantern ring, immediate villain. You know, being corrupted by the Joker, that's not really gaining power, but, you know, gains Superman's powers, goes batshit crazy with power, starts, I think, killing people. Like, any comic iteration of Batman where he gains, like, some substantial ability, he's an evil bitch. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, you think of someone like Batman as, like, you know, the pinnacle of humanity. You know, it's said from Amanda Waller where it's like, you know, pretty much saying that Batman's like the best of us. You know, the only thing greater than his magnificent brain is his heart. But I'm just like, well, you know, that motherfucker might have an amazing heart, but he's powerful. He's just as evil as anyone else.
Right. I like stories that like tap into that kind of idea, because I think there's a lot of truth in that, you know? And it's not even really the fault of the character, you know? Like, the character was thrown in this shit. That's the other thing, too, that I really respect about this game, is that it's like, it's a do or die situation that your character's thrown in. And right from the get-go, your older brother is killed right in front of you, right? From Boss. And in that decision right there, your character had the decision to either cower and let the same fate happen to him that happened to his older brother, or have to play at the island's game.
Yeah.
And I think that with that thought process, you're bound to become consumed by the island itself. Does that make sense? And I think there's something really fascinating to think about with that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it starts out as like your hand is forced situation, because obviously, like, you know, choosing between living and dying, you're going to choose living every time. But what does that mean? Like, the thriving of your survival is the death of your humanity.
Yes. And it's all for what is a good, righteous cause, which is to save your friends, but you lose yourself in the process, right? It's the trade. That's the price you pay for having to save your friends, is you have to become as bad as these pirates here. And I think that's really interesting. And the other thing, too, that I really like about this is it breaks the fourth wall a little bit in the sense of where they make the character feel how the player feels playing the game. So, like, I'm having fun, like, killing all these guys and getting these new abilities and upgrades, right? But the main character also feels the same way you do doing those actions. And so the narrative almost points the gun back at the player, going like, yeah, so you feel you have fun killing this many people? And then you start to think about your own morality in that sense, where it's like, yeah, I am having fun, and the character's having fun, and then what do you become with that idea that you're enjoying this? You know what I mean? Like, no, games don't really have the balls to call the player out for enjoying mass murder, you know? And I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like,
And that's exactly what I was saying earlier, is like, this game would benefit from choices, because the only way to not succumb to that is to not interact with that. And the only way to not interact with that in this game is to not play the game.
right.
So it's just like, you know, in this moment, while you're taking these guys out, having the option is like, all right, I could take it stealthy, or I can, you know, try to take these guys out. So having the option of stealth, while it would be harder to get through this area to get your goal done, would help save your morality along the way. But, you know, the benefit is, you know, you have a chance for upgrades the more you kill people. You have a chance for, like things are going to be easier the more people you take out. Having a choice in the shape of a game like this only can benefit the game, I feel like.
Yeah, and I just ultimately there's a lot more about this game I'm appreciating than I ever did before, and I've played this game a few times. But I've never played it with a critical eye like I have been.
I think it helps that we've gotten older. Oh, hello. Is there somebody in here? Is it like a captive or something?
No, I think our guy said that.
I mean,
Shit, gotta get the fuck out.
I feel the exact same way where, you know, when I go back to games that I played as a kid, like, I didn't think twice about what I was playing as a child. But now that I'm older, my brain is a bit more, like, well-developed. You know, you can actually have time to sit and spend some time on these character moments and actually unpack what they actually mean.
And try to take something from the story and try to relate it to something going on in your real life, or try to put yourself in the character's shoes, and then I feel like you can salvage more out of a story, and it's more impactful to you to do that. You know, I try to do that with almost every story I consume now, and like I was saying before, I feel like the game that really started that mindset in terms of narrative was Red Dead Redemption 2. Because I really put myself in the character's shoes and tried to think of this decisions, and like that's another game that really, like, as you'll go through, you'll realize that like that game gives you the option to be good or bad. But as I progressed and I was sitting with Arthur's character more, I felt more inclined to make good decisions because of something that happens in the story. And I don't want to spoil that for you, but because of that, it almost puts you fully immersed in the game and be like, what would I do if someone gave me that news?
Yeah.
You know, like, how would I choose to live my life? And it leads to a really rewarding ending, I think, personally.
Feel the same, where, like, typically if I have the option of the high road, like, I think about what I would do in the situation, and it leads towards the high road. On the odd occasion, I'll, like, stoop just for, like, a moment of, like, levity, or, like, just, like, having fun with the game being a game. Where I'll like succumb to that and be like, all right, no, you know, you want to fuck around, bitch? All right, sure, yeah, I'll take you out. But the problem with something I do in my free time, which is the crouch block videos, is instead of thinking about a game or a movie or a show in a deep way out of like happenstance, I'm like forcing myself to think in that mindset and be in that frame of mind. But continuously doing that, like, and intentionally forcing yourself to do that can be exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about every game or every show or every movie you watch with a critical lens is, like, it's taxing on the mind. Like,
yeah.
You're doing this out of the sheer love of the game, and just because, like, I don't know, like, it just kind of happened upon you that you started thinking about the game in this way. But approaching everything you interact with under that lens is, like, you're just mentally taxed. But I still like doing it. I still love doing it. Like, the right thing has to come along for me to want to do it in the first place. But yeah, I'm glad this game is like evokes something out of you. But like also thinking back to it, where when this game came out, you might not have been of the mind where, like, you're probably what, like 15, 16 when this game came out?
Spot on the money. I was like 15 when this game came out. And I remember I got it when it first came out. It was like a Christmas gift.
As a kid, you kind of just enjoy the journey for what it is, and yeah, you probably had a lot of fun. Like, but this game was likely not targeted at someone that's 15 or 16.
Yeah.
I don't. With that said, I don't think you shouldn't play this game when you're 15 or 16. Like, I don't think, like, I've never been of the mind where it's like, oh, like, only play M for mature rated games. I'm like, oh, dude, if that was like really the case, then I wouldn't have played so many of the games that I played when I was a teenager. But, you know, when you've mentally developed more, you can unpack these things just that much more. Like, I think I'm dramatically smarter than when I was 15 or 16.
Sure.
And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, yeah, there's definitely some truth to what you're saying. Like, obviously my I don't think like I was just in that frame of mind at 15 playing this game. Like, I definitely was just playing it for the fun of it. But I'm glad that a game like this is capable of being just fun, but also having that depth to it. That's why it's in my top 10, is because I'm like, you know, I like games that can do the balance of both. Like this game, we were talking about it last time we played this, where it's like, is this like kind of like a power trip kind of game,
Yeah.
like a Doom or something? And it is, but it makes you question
The power trip.
exactly. And I think that's really cool. You know, like, don't get me wrong, I love games like Doom where I just get to like shut my brain off and enjoy it for that, you know? But
Absolutely.
I also like a game that challenges you as
Because you interacted with
right.
it.
That's a piece of art to me, you know? Like, to me, that is art, you know? Like, and I can tell when the creators of this game, I don't know the directors, but I should know the directors of this game because they really did a good job.
Something I just realized too, with playing God of War 2, I rarely pay attention to like the publishers and whoever is like working on the game. But what really stood out to me was that Blue Point worked on the game, and Blue Point is also responsible for the Demon Souls remake, and is also responsible for Uncharted 4.
Blue Point does a lot of the like ports and remasters of games. They did the ports of the Uncharted Nathan Drake collection.
But I think they also were responsible for Uncharted 4, I think.
I think Naughty Dog did Uncharted 4.
Yeah, but they might have been working in tandem with,
That's probably true, actually.
potentially.
Jesus.
I could be wrong. Rest in peace, that white tiger or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah, we might actually need to grab that skin.
Yeah, grab that meat, baby. You could take that as out of context as you want to, Shale. And grab that meat, Cody.
Unfortunately, with this franchise in particular, this game was such a reimagination of it that every Far Cry after this,
It was just
from
lesser.
what I remember, was trying to capture what this game did. So they all just felt like carbon, like, okay, we gotta have the interesting bad guy. We gotta have like the skins and use those skins for upgrades, and like just everything mechanically was the same.